and thanks for joining us for another episode of Mid-American Gardener. I'm your host, Tanisha Spain, and joining me in studio today are two of our panelists that have brought a lot of really cool stuff to talk to you about and demonstrate. So we'll have them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their specialty. So Ella, we'll start with you.
I'm Ella Maxwell. I'm a master gardener and a horticulturist in the Peoria area, and I enjoy, I have a large landscape, so I enjoy trees and shrubs and perennials, and that's some of the things I brought today.
Excellent. All right, Shane.
Hi, I'm Shane Coulter. I'm one of the family of owners of Country Arborist Nursery in Urbana. I'm officially retired, so that means I get to play more in the garden. I've been on the show now since 1995, so I've kind of done a little bit of everything, growing plants of all kinds, trees, shrubs, perennials. I love them all, so I can answer pretty much anything it has to do with the Illinois plants.
All right, and tell us what you're up to now. You've got a new hobby.
Yeah, so I mean, I've always had a hobby of honey. I've loved honey. I was addicted to honey, so I figured out I had to come up with a way to get more of it. And then before you know it, I had a business of selling honey. So I work with local beekeepers in the area, and we sell the different flavors. That's one thing I do. I can taste all the different flavors of all the different trees and flowers, and I've gotten to know this one comes from this plant. And so I kind of separate them out and I keep them raw. And they just had a nice study today about cholesterol levels can be reduced with honey.
Oh.
I mean, who knew that a natural product from nature was good for you?
Who knew?
Oh, yeah.
Who knew? So that's kind of been what I've been doing with Christmas. It's been great. Lots of people, it's a perfect gift to give a nice local honey.
It's the good stuff.
Yeah,
and the one that you brought last time, that was hot.
Yeah, I infused some Carolina Reapers in that one. I like to infuse different flavors. I mean, honey is good on its own, but I also like to take like other flavors and kind of let them soak a little bit and take it on. We did a coffee honey and some blueberry, and I just love experimenting. I put honey on everything. I'm really addicted to it, so I might as well make it even more fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so Ella, she's our resident crafter. Every year about this time, you make us something lovely on the show, and then it sparks so much conversation because people want to make what you made. You made a living arrangement last year that sat on my porch until spring. I misted it. I took beautiful care of it. And so now you're going to make what? What are we making?
I am going to make a wreath. So you can buy the wreath forms, and this is called paddle wire, and I've attached it, and it's a continuous wire. And so we're going to just wrap it around this wreath. And the wreath is convex or concave, and I use the concave side to help. And I brought just greens that came from my yard. Boxwood, I like the broadleaf texture of the boxwood. This is just like a roadside juniper. And of course, white pine. Now this was up pretty high. I had to wait for a branch to fall out. Actually, I picked it up off the side of the road. But I do have a green giant arborvitae, and I think this just makes a wonderful texture element. And then, of course, the wonderful dark green of the regular yew that you have, whether it's a spreading one or more upright. You can certainly prune this time of year with these kinds of evergreens. Want to be careful not to take all the new growth off the edges of the plant, but definitely can. And I chose these because as they dry, they shrink and they still stay on the wreath. So this could be used inside for an Advent wreath or to decorate a table for the holidays. And you can make it in oasis, you know, some kind of little arrangement too. But I've got all the pieces cut anywhere from about 6 to 8 inches, and then you can just, you know, pick up a few different ones together to make the texture, and you're just going to start placing it on the wreath, wrap around 2 to 3 times, and then you add another bunch. And so hopefully by the end of the show, we've created an entire wreath.
Okay.
It's very, very easy. Once you're done, you can use wilt proof. I was going to bring some spray, or some people use hairspray. It just helps to put a waxy coating on it. So you can see the different textures. I really like that. Or I don't use spruce because as it dries out, it shatters.
Gotcha.
And there's enough little needles anyway.
So you'll keep that going all that same direction?
Yes,
the
that's right.
there?
You keep the bundles all going in the same direction.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, while you're working on that,
Okay.
we're going to visit Shane and see what he brought to talk about.
Yeah, so today I brought, one of the nice things that we don't always realize is technology in plants, it does continue to improve. And we all would love to have a grow light. When we were inside, we always said, well, I wish I could just have a nice grow light. So we end up getting the kind of the cheap little bulbs, and because they were inexpensive. And the real growers, the marijuana growers, always had the really fancy setups because they were professional growers. Or a greenhouse setup where they spent all their money. But now, LED has changed everything. So LED full spectrum lights are super cheap.
Yes.
And that means you can take your houseplant, doesn't have to suffer. We're always talking about the show how just expect it to look poor. Just expect it to look bad. Just keep it alive during that season. That doesn't have to be the case anymore. And LED, this setup that I have, actually is under $40. It has 4 full spectrum lights that you can move to all your different plants all around the room and have this big broad area of house plants. And it's amazing how much improvement you get. I have a pepper plant, that Carolina Reaper that I made the honey with, it's producing all winter long. I took 20 peppers off of it over the last couple of weeks. And so it's because of a $40 light. To run them, they're LED. So that the grow, if you're growing plants before, a really nice grow light could cost you $30 to $50 a month in extra electricity. LED, that's not the case. So that means you get cheap grow lights, you get cheap electricity, and you get plants that look really good, and you don't have to go into the garden center. Like we, at Country Arbors, we stored plants, and it became really difficult for people that to bring them to us and to move them out of their house. And we were sending trucks to have two people. We would store people's.
Really?
And we loved doing it, but the movement and the back and forth made it really cost prohibitive. We had to charge so much money. Well, now they don't have to. Now, if you go to Florida and you have that luxury, then I don't feel as bad for you. You have to figure something out. But if you're at home, as long as you can get it into maybe a warmer area, you don't have to have any light. Even a dark garage that keeps its heat will do just fine because this is the light. You can set the timer on it. Yes. I have it go for about 10 hours a day. I just need to keep it warm. I don't need any light bulbs. I don't need anything else. I just need this. So I have things all over the house. I don't know if my wife likes it. I will say that the neighbors maybe don't know that I'm growing houseplants, that they do think I'm quite a large cannabis grower because there's lights glowing in all areas of my home.
Guilty. But I've got the clamp ones that you clamp onto things and you can adjust. I mean, it's changed everything.
It is, and the time. Sometimes I'll mess the timers up a little bit, so at night the place will be glowing. But in general, it's really a game changer, and it's super exciting. And again, the cost online is nothing. It's really.
Can you burn leaves? Is there anything about distance or strength of the light with those?
Well, I think there are plants that have certain foot candles that they want to see or time of day. You can absolutely do that, just as you would put it in a window. But there's really not heat coming from this. Gotcha. I don't think that these actual will cause any kind of burn from that standpoint. But plants that want less sunlight and shade, this is sunlight, so you have to be careful of that. If it's a shade plant, you want to reduce the number of hours that it's getting, or take it off the light a little bit. But again, we're not getting much sunlight. I have a fruit tree, I have a lime tree, and it really struggles in the winter. And now the leaves are huge and glossy and green because of this. And my wife she was not believing that. She goes, "What are you doing? You brought this giant concoction into the guest bedroom." And now we're starting to get limes and flowers. So she's
on board with it now.
Oh, wow.
When you yield.
My plants are in plant prison, so I need this because it's lack of light.
Yes.
It is.
And so my plants kind of have to suffer until the following summer when I can take them back outside. But you're right about the affordability, even just for your own lighting purposes now. I put in all LED instead of the fluorescent in my garage, and it's
twice as bright. It's
Oh yeah, it's lovely.
It's really an amazing, I don't want to say invention because it's been around, but we've really perfected it to be a low-cost source. And again, you don't have to have a window. You're always looking for that window in your house that's proper. I have it in a room in the basement that nobody ever sees, and now it's a perfect growing area.
It's growing beautifully. And just
really
within the last few years, I bought my first light in 2018, and I spent some money on it.
Yeah.
Fast forward to my last one, $30.
I know
and it had the four heads on it.
It's been 50% reduction every year for the last couple of years in cost of it.
Yes,
Yeah,
and it makes a huge difference. So.
Yeah, they always look terrible. My lime tree was just writing a suicide note to me because it's like, please take me out of my misery. It looks so bad. And now the leaves look better than it does outside, because outside I didn't water it. I didn't look at it every day. It'd be in my back porch. And I said, oh, I forgot to water it. But now it's right there, and I remember all the time, and I check. It gives me something over the winter when it's dreary and there's no sunlight. You go in there and see plants looking healthy. That's a nice change for the winter.
And like you said, the convenience of the timer, the dimmers that you can adjust the intensity of the light.
Wow.
Think about spring when we start doing seeds.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Start doing all of these things and getting a head start.
Yes.
But like I said, I'm getting peppers now. I have a huge pepper plant.
I do have some, but the thing that I do is, again, my plants are in my basement, and so I have a downstairs fridge there, and I do right when I water, because I forget. I don't go look at these plants, and sometimes it's, again, I'm not a very good caretaker.
It's hard over the winter, though.
It is.
It really
is.
It really is.
So there we go.
And there it is.
Well, I left a place, kind of ran out at the top here for the bow. But once you have these in, then you can use some of the other picks and things, and you just push them in the direction that these came, and it's just kind of fun. And if you get sap on your hands, you can use a cooking spray and a paper towel, or rubbing alcohol, of course, would take the sap off, or you can wear a pair of gloves, or I really like disposable gloves. I should have brought that.
And you know, you could do so much with that. You can make it Christmassy if you like. Put some
right.
ornaments or different things in there, but I mean, you really just pulled that together.
Yeah, all
in
while
no
we're
time.
talking, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Holy
there you
cow.
go. And I mean, you can make them in all different kinds of sizes, and it's a wonderful gift. And
very
the fragrant,
very fragrant.
That's right. That's
too bad we don't have smell-o-vision yet. That'll be the next one.
There we go.
Today it's LEDs. Tomorrow it's smell-o-vision. All right, we've got a question that came in our email. This is about a pear tree, and I'm going to be listening because I have a very messy one. This is from Annette Brandon in Mahomet. She has an ornamental pear tree that bears lots of fruit. The fruit falls from the tree and it splatters on top of the mulch as well as the driveway. Is there a spray that can be used on this tree to stop fruit growth? If a spray is able to contain the berries, who can I contact to spray the tree? So is this a self-application, and does this product exist?
Yes, there is a self-application. The product exists. It's a plant growth regulator. It's called Florel. It uses a chemical that's metabolized by the plant that causes the flowers to abort. Spraying is very you have to get it right at the right time for it to really work. And I'm not sure what that is without reading the label, but the product's available online. I don't know if there's any companies that spray specifically, but Shane and I are going to talk about the fact that you should probably remove this pear, because this is exactly why it's becoming problematic in our natural environment, is the preponderance of these seeds. And although they are providing some bird food, they are destroying natural areas because they germinate and start a new tree that has some of the characteristics of the more wild tree that it was cultivated from. And so you can have thorns and all kinds of things. And the other thing is she probably didn't notice, but it does have stinky flowers in the spring.
Stinky flowers, huh?
Yeah, it does.
I'm not really familiar with ornamental pears. Shane,
Yeah,
tell us
so
a little.
you probably are. You just don't realize it until you see them. So they're the white, the very first blooming white in the spring.
Okay.
It's the first thing to bloom, and it does smell a little bit like cat urine if it gets pretty strong. That's the smell that I think of when I and pears. I've switched teams on pears. So in the 90s, pears were everywhere. We all planted them.
They were wonderful.
They weren't invasive like they are now. They just didn't. They didn't do what they're doing right now. So I don't know what the reason is. Maybe there's more mature pears since that time that we planted them. But Stone Creek neighborhood alone has thousands and thousands of pear trees in all the empty lots. It's the most invasive thing I've ever seen. Also, pear trees do not provide any value to nature at all. There are no bugs and there are no birds that eat. They don't like the berries.
Really?
So they're the only
Okay.
tree that we have in Illinois that has zero pest, which is good if you, I guess, if you're trying to grow something, but it provides nothing for nature at all. As opposed to an English oak, which has thousands of different bugs and all these values for birds and nature, where the pear provides nothing. The only thing is it's fast.
It is,
Interesting.
and it has problems because it does have good fall color, but it holds its leaves very late into the season. And when we get some ice storms and the brittle wood that it has, and it has a lot of codominant, very narrow crotch angles, they break up. And that was one of the things that they started choosing cultivars that had a more open habit. But what happened was the first ornamental pears that came out were not self-fruitful. They wouldn't set fruit, and that was the selling point until they came up with all these different cultivars that then provided genetic diversity and pollination and fruit set in the natural environment. And so that's what we're seeing now. And there are communities as well as certain states that, and the state of Illinois is looking at the Callery pear as a exotic invasive threat. They haven't outlawed the sale of it, but most nurseries no longer carry the pears.
It's on the problematic list.
Yeah, we avoid it unless somebody absolutely has to have one. At Country Arbors, it's not something we grow anymore. It's
So the
not.
allure is it's a fast-growing tree, and it
flowers.
And it
Flowers.
flowers.
It has 3 seasons of interest: fall color, a glossy leaf, and like we've talked about, no real pests. And you can spray this product, but you're then tied to spraying each and every year, and the tree gets larger, and you know there's costs involved, and there's so many other wonderful flowering ornamental trees that you could take, whether it's some of the newer varieties of crab apples, and there are fruitless varieties there, and then of course some others, maybe a flowering dogwood, and there's several different kinds. Oh, yeah.
I was going to say,
white
she
bud.
mentions in here that it's near the driveway. So are you thinking a compact?
Yeah,
You know,
and there's ivy silk lilacs, which we have around the studio here
Oh,
all the time.
yeah.
It's a nice white summer blooming. So, and again, it's one of those things, it's like getting a new car. You think nobody has one, and then as soon as you get it, you see all the other ones. Once you see the pears, you'll realize they're all
I'll
over
know it.
town, and it's an
It'll
issue.
click.
And they are. It's not when they're going to break. It's not if they're going to break. It's when they do. How bad is it going to be? So we try and choose. It's kind of like a diet. Eat this, not that. There's so many other things you can choose other than the pear. But she has it. That's not helping her right now. It's for us to say, cut it down. It's not that simple. So Florel is the spray. The problem is every time I mention Florel, the first question after that is, who can I get to do it? I don't want to do it myself. And it's a timing thing. It has to be done right when it's flowering, because that's what's going to abort. If you let it go too far, then it's going to germinate. So you have to hit it within a certain couple of days as soon as that flower opens. And then you have to have somebody else time that. People are super busy and they're not going to hit that at the same time. So that's always the difficult part of it.
And spraying evenly and doing it,
Yeah.
doing a
So
good job.
I do recommend Evans Horticulture. They're great guys, but they're going to be the first people to tell you that's the busiest time of year for them too. So, but there just aren't very many people that are doing those type of things out there, because there's so many other things to do that aren't as timely. And, and it's a lot of work.
So you can get the spray, or you can
it's
get
doable.
rid of it.
Yeah, and there is an injection too, but that's even more work for people. There is an injection of Florel type things, but again, you're looking at an arborist needs to be doing these kind of things. The downside is replacing it is costly. But in the long run, it'll be much better than having that dropping in your driveway.
Less headache for sure.
The tree as well.
Yeah, and you don't even know if you really need the tree there. Once it's gone, it's surprising how you thought that you couldn't live without it, but then once it's gone, it's, I'm okay.
My parents went on a tear last summer and got rid of a lot of trees in their yard. And I was upset, but they were like, look at this place. Look at the landscape. It's so open. And now they're excited about what they're going to put in this spring. So it's created, an opportunity for them to sort of.
There you go.
Your birds will be happy too if you if you get a new one though. So it just depends on your spacing. We often overplant on trees. It's usually they don't have enough or they have too many. There's nobody
Never
seems to
the
get it
sweet
perfect,
spot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we've got another question. This is from Dan. Dan wants to know how to overwinter a climbing rose bush that's in a container. And both of you have different ideas, so I'll let you guys explain.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I always wonder is how people have rose bushes they don't get planted, because a rose bush generally is a 5-minute planting. So it's if you buy things, you should have an idea where it goes. But I understand sometimes people just can't make that decision or they're not there. They can be a little bit tender if you leave them out in the open. So you don't want to just sit it on your front porch and leave it there. If you can't decide where you want to plant it, but you're able to physically plant, I always do the sneaky thing where I'll dig a hole and drop it into the ground and then just kind of mulch it in. And if I want to change the location, I can do that because I can just pull it out of the ground and then put it somewhere else. But it thinks it's planted. It's the same as planting it, but it's not a permanent home. And then the last thing that I'll do is I love my window wells. So if I just drop things into there, like things that are a little bit more tender, because it's much, much warmer down 8-10 feet, however deep your window well is. And you can just drop things down there and they will overwinter fine. I've even had bananas and cannas that have done just fine down there. And if you get a cover, even more, it turns into a greenhouse. So that's a good place to store them as well.
Yeah, I have right now in my garage about 30 1-gallon pots of perennials that we were going to dispose of, but I have all these plant sales I have to go to, so I'm taking a chance on some plant material. So I overwinter quite a bit. Cold storage in my garage. It doesn't freeze, but it's also not necessarily heated. Some people's garages may be too warm, so there could be an outbuilding or even up against the north side of your house. Works well too. So definitely go ahead and overwinter it with some protection.
And the good thing about the north side, people don't realize why you go north side. The sun sits in the south. So if you look out, you'll see that all winter the sun is very low in the south and it just creeps along. And if you keep things on the south side, it actually warms it up a little bit, and then at night the temperature drops when the sun goes down. And plants hate fluctuation. They don't mind cold, but it's the fluctuation.
That's right.
Keep
that's
it
right.
cold. Keep it dormant.
And that's why one reason that I brought tree wrap
That's where I went to.
Again, for young new trees, especially thin barked trees, that would be, the maple specifically, but anything that is newly planted or has a very smooth, thin bark, we recommend tree wrap. And this is a paper tree wrap. And of course, you always start at the bottom and wrap up so that as you go up, it would shed water. You know, if you start at the top and go down, then water can drip down into the seams. So, and this can just be attached with some masking tape or something. And again, I reuse it and roll it back up in the spring, but I do some Japanese maples. And then, of course, this I have as a column. It's about 3 foot, and this is more for deer protection. This will not stop the rubbing on bark, but this is a better way to right now protect your trees from the rut when the male deer are marking and such. And then I also have some trees in my yard that I just let them mark.
Sometimes you just have to.
And this keeps the rabbit off it too, because rabbits do like to chew on fruit trees, and a crab tree is in the fruit family, and that bark is really sweet. Cherry trees, crab trees, they love it. So if there's nothing to eat, they're going to eat the bark off the bottom of your tree, and wrapping it does a really good job. And that southeast side, so when people come in and have cracks on their maple, I can go draw exactly where it was going to be before I even see the tree. It's in the same spot every year for generations, because the sun hangs there and warms that bark up, and then at night it pops it.
Right.
And the maples are very susceptible because they tend to be thinner, but they also tend to be susceptible to Roundup. So Roundup won't kill a maple or a pear if you spray it on the bark, but it makes the bark thin. So then it's more susceptible to frost cracking. Because we had issues in the field where we go, why are these maples cracking? These are supposed to be the thicker bark maples. We sprayed them with Roundup and we got a little fast and kind of run the row with Roundup. And it touched the bark and it just made it a little bit thinner. And so those popped.
I did not know that.
Dogwoods are
susceptible.
susceptible.
Not too late, but is now a good time if you're going to wrap your trees?
Anytime.
Oh yeah. Sometime before Christmas. Usually, you know, around Thanksgiving is when the weather is still nice to work outside.
Gotcha.
But definitely want to make sure that you're protecting the trunk of your trees, whether they're against rodents, deer, or just
a couple dollars saves you hundreds of dollars in damage.
Right.
Now, when do you take that off? Is there a certain temperature benchmark that you're waiting for, or in the spring?
When they start leafing out, I tend to take it off.
By April, I've gone and collected them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that is our time. Thank you guys so much for coming in.
Wow.
This is absolutely gorgeous. Can you tell us one more time on the way out what you used, just in case when people want to go outside and look in their yard?
So again, the wreath can be made with a single solitary evergreen, whatever you'd like, but I like the combination of the different varieties. So we have juniper, common juniper. This could be a spreading one or a more upright one or one on the side of the road. White pine, again, a 5-needle pine, really nice. Boxwood for a textural element. And then arborvitae is very, very common now for the upright varieties. And then I do have some Chamaecyparis here. Your common yew.
Excellent.
So,
okay. Well, thank
wonderful.
you guys for coming in.
Thank
you
you
so much for watching. And we will see you next time. Good night.